the 5 overtime losses for the Colorado Avalanche this year. I think OT losses can be spun in one of two ways. You could either be like, ooh, that team's fraudulent, they're just getting to overtime a lot. Or you could be like, damn, they're one bounce away from winning 5 more games than they already have. Are the OT losses making the Avs look better or worse than their record is?
Let me answer it by telling you this. I talked to Jared Bednar about this the other day because I said, you're 0-5 and kind of prodding around the same question. And essentially where he got to was when the playoffs roll around and we're playing hockey in May, I don't have to worry about 3-on-3. I don't have to worry about a shootout. We'll continue to kind of, scout it. The teams that we're playing, we'll try to make our coaching adjustments. It'd be nice to get those points, but they're just not too worried about it. I actually think when you watch the games, I think the overtime losses, in my perspective, are making them look better because they are kind of slugging these games out where they're forcing them to overtime. The Nordiques and Whalers game, I don't know if you guys tuned into that one, but they were down 4-1 more than halfway through that game, and they're able to fight back and get the game tied late, get to overtime. And then just for whatever reason, their 3-on-3 isn't working. But I actually think that because of the way that they're getting to overtime, I actually think the 5 overtime losses are showing a lot of resilience. For whatever reason, it doesn't make sense. Nathan McKinnon, Marty Necas, Cale Makar do not work in 3-on-3. It just hasn't worked. I believe they've been on the ice for all 3 of the 5 losses that have come in overtime before the shootout. So I think it's shown a really nice bit of resilience from this group. But yeah, for whatever reason, 3-on-3 in the shootout is not friendly to a group that feels like it really should be.
Oilers kind of in the similar boat.
Yeah.
They're 1-0. I guess they have 2 OT wins this year, but there's been a couple where they've gotten power plays in overtime and the big guns just
flat.
cannot figure it out. But anyways.
I wanted to ask you about Devon Toews, a guy who we all know he's not an offensive guy. He's a defensive, reliable player, but he still puts up 50 points a season typically. But right now he's just kind of lingering down at 3. What's his game like right now for the Avalanche? And also too, for a Canadian market, I'm sure they want to know what he's going to be like for them at the Olympics as well.
Yeah, so I'll answer the second part of that first. What Canadian fans can expect is one of the most steady, reliable guys that I've seen in all my time covering this team. He seems to be one of those guys who just doesn't make mistakes to the point that when he does, it's conversation worthy in the press box because he always makes the right pass. He always makes the right read. He has this unbelievable ability to, he'll be defending an odd man rush, and in 2.5 seconds, he'll go from breaking that odd man rush up to springing the team going the other way. He just has this calming effect on the back end for the Avs. So that's what Canadian fans can expect, come Olympic time, is that he's going to be that kind of stabling anchor there in the top part of that lineup. But truthfully, I actually think the reason that we aren't seeing Devon Toews pile up the points and maybe in the way that he has in seasons past, despite his game still being really rock solid right now, is the Avs are just better on the back end than they have been. Brent Burns is quarterbacking that second power play where Devon Toews did play before. Burns is eating more minutes, so Cale Makar and Devon Toews aren't having to play as much as they have in years past. And then I'm going to throw a sneaky Sam Malinsky plug here on the pod because he has been excellent for the Avs so far this season. I say it to people, and I have to always be very cautious the way I say this. He's diet Cale Makar light. He's just he's got a lot of those, the way he thinks the game, his skating ability. He makes some of those small little plays, offensively, but he's also really smart in his own end. He's another guy that Jared Bednar has put a lot of trust into for some ozone starts, things like that. So I really think it's for Devon Toews' production. It's really more of a result of they don't need him to do that right now. They've got some other areas where they can kind of disperse that. But no, his game overall has continued to be what it has been since he arrived in Colorado, which is the stabling force out there with Cale Makar, who's good in his own end in his own right. But when you have Devon Toews, it allows Cale to take those extra chances, jump up in a rush where maybe he wouldn't have otherwise.
I was pretty surprised to pull up Gabe Landeskog's stats and see he only has 4 points on the year. And obviously he came off a major injury. his production at least was good in the playoffs last year, but like, is this just a slumping Landeskog, or is this just the new post-injury Landeskog that Avs fans are going to have to get used to?
Yeah, and it's a good question. If you dig into some of his underlyings, he's a little snake bit right now. He had the one goal that was called back for a really weird offsides week and a half ago. He's kind of been around. He's had a couple posts. I'm more tending to lean towards the latter of what you said there, Tyler, of like, this might just be kind of who he is now. Still, really effective. He's logging some good minutes for him. He got in a fight in the last game. But I just think maybe from a production standpoint, this just kind of might be, who he is, where I imagine he'll end the season, probably in that, 50 to 60 point range once everything kind of settles in, assuming that, he's staying healthy and not load management, every other night type stuff when you get near the end. And I think that's all right. I was listening to what, you guys were talking about before, with prospects and, who they need guys to be and stuff like that. And I think that's where the Avs are at right now is if Gabe Landeskog can be a solid third line winger for them in terms of on ice and production and that stuff, I think they'll be happy with that, because what Gabe Landeskog brings off the ice in the locker room, the way that he gets this team going, and I think you can tie it back to them being able to get to overtime in some games where maybe they didn't deserve it. That's Gabe Landeskog. His effect on this team is more valuable in the way that he leads this group than him being a 25, 30 goal guy. That's really nice. That's really helpful. But no, like I said, I tend to lean more towards he's going to be effective. He's going to be out there, be hard to play against. But I just think that might be the reality of the production won't quite be where it was before his 3-year hiatus.
I got one more.
Okay, I do too.
What did you make of the Martin Necas contract?
Yep. It's about $1 million per year higher than where I thought it was going to come in. I really did. I thought the Avs were going to try to keep him around 10-5, try to keep him below 11. But I think once the deal got signed and you kind of took the larger step back and looked at not only Marty Necas and how he's fit in Colorado next to Nathan MacKinnon, when you factor in the fact that you traded Mikko Rantanen and got a player that, at least from a point production standpoint, is keeping pace with a guy like that. I think the Avs knew you probably weren't going to get that lucky again. You weren't going to flip Marty Necas for another guy in that tier. And then I think the last part of it is you just look back and look at the landscape. And as maybe sticker shock as it might be for some people to see, Marty Necas getting 11.5, I do just kind of think this is the landscape that we're in now. I think a player of his caliber, that's just kind of the range that they're at. I think, Chris McFarland maybe sent a bottle of whiskey to Connor McDavid and his agent saying, hey, thanks, that could have gotten a little bit out of control there had you guys not, poured some cold water on everything. But no, like I said, I think the Avs are happy to have this behind him. This is the guy. They know he's going to be here now for the next 8 years. He's playing really well next to Nathan MacKinnon. He's off to a great start. And I just think that they didn't want to deal with it anymore. And hey, maybe you paid a little bit more than what you would have wanted. But again, you're getting the big cap boost. And this is just what 80-point players are signing for now. It's just the new landscape as this cap continues to grow. So ultimately, I think it was good for them to get it done.
The term all in is kind of funny. And I do think with the West being as competitive as it is, where like to get to a cup final, you not only need to get through a Dallas, a Winnipeg, and whoever else, fucking Utah might be good now. Yeah. But in the Pacific, then you eventually got to get through Edmonton or Vegas. Like there's just so many teams to get through. So like being all in every year is tricky. Also, Cale Makar has one more year on his deal. Then he might be making twice as much as what he's making right now. Is there pressure on Chris McFarland to go all in, or do you look at a year, like I have it up right now, they don't have a pick until the 4th round this season. Like, is this a year where he goes, you know what, let's dig deeper in the futures and let's try to do something while Cale's still on this great contract? Or is this let's just see how the chips fall this year and not get crazy?
So I think they do have a lot of pressure this season and next internally to try to get it done, to try to win. And it's similar to in 2022, that was the last year of Nathan McKinnon's $6.5 million deal. And there was a huge emphasis on, we know it's going to get more difficult to build the cup contender beyond this season. So I do think they are looking at where Cale Makar is at and saying, I think it's a big reason why they did the Mikko Rantanen deal last year. The first thing Chris McFarland said to us after he traded Mikko Rantanen was, we weren't deep enough. We needed to be deeper. And I think they were looking at that saying, we're going to, if they had given Mikko Rantanen the $12 million, you would have no Brock Nelson right now, no Victor Olofsson, who's off to a great start. You're Jack Drury, obviously, who's the other guy that came back in that trade, who's been really good for them in the bottom part of the lineup. So you sit there and you say, okay, they made that move to try to make themselves more competitive. Now you're back in this window where you're able to balance the lineup a little bit more, but you're 100% correct. Not only is Cale Makar up after next season, so is Arturi Lehkonen, who has been massive for this group over the last 3 seasons. So, you've got some money that's coming down the line that you're going to have to spend. So I think Chris McFarland does have a strong emphasis on, we like this group. We want to win right now. And I know Edmonton has had a couple really painful losses in the last 2 years. But I don't know how you draw up a more brutal way to lose a playoff series than what the Avs went through 3-4 months ago. A third period lead that evaporates at the hands of Mikko Rantanen against one of your organization's biggest rivals going back to the 90s. I think it's a motivated group. I think they're trying to capitalize on, hey, this is a group that went through a lot of pain last year. They brought it back mostly intact. So I think there's a couple reasons why they're trying to look at this group that they've got right now and say, let's get this over the finish line before we've got to dole out $18 million to Cale Makar.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you enjoyed today's episode of Oilers Nation Every Day, make sure you hit the subscribe button here on our YouTube to not miss any of our content. We got you covered, from interviews, insight, analysis, everything you need to stay up to date on everything around the team. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a video.